All right, we did it. We hit 1,000 subscribers, and I said when that happened, we would be answering some of your questions from down in the comments right here in a special video. And, well, let's just jump right into it. I have them here in front of me. Lil Toaster said, fun fact, Tom Hanks played the French soldier who executed the Germans by the side of the road. Jared, do you know anything about this?
In the episode of Band of Brothers.
Yes, Why We Fight, I believe that was.
I did not know this, and I will have to hit the pause button the next time we take a look at it. But I do know that if this is so, it's not the first time that Tom Hanks has played a Frenchman in an HBO production.
Really?
He actually played the French filmmaker Georges Méliès in the predecessor to Band of Brothers, the series From the Earth to the Moon.
The more you know.
So he played a French filmmaker in that, and he's decked out all old and everything, and he's hardly recognizable. So a fun little bit from Band of Brothers in Space, From the Earth to the Moon.
Loves his cameos. I'm a bit skeptical on him being the French guy in Why We Fight.
He does play one of the Red Devils, though.
He does, that's confirmed.
In the Crossroads scene that he directed.
Okay, number 2. I think I have 20 of these. They're not all questions, some are just comments that I liked. Joe Heller says, I will say the only thing that I was upset at HBO for about the depiction was where are the pink triangles or the mention of homosexual prisoners.
And this is in the 9th episode of Band of Brothers of Why We Fight.
An incredible amount of comments on that episode.
Yes, rightfully so. Rightfully so.
You know, as well, most of these comments are from our Band of Brothers video.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Well, you know, it's certainly an important point to raise, and you know, I can't say that I've ever gone through with that much attention to detail to see what the prisoner designation on the uniforms in that episode is, but if you look carefully at the prisoner uniforms of victims of the Holocaust, there were a number of different designations. There were ones for common criminals, ones for homosexuals, the aforementioned pink triangles. There were, you know, political prisoners. You know, if you were a communist or a socialist or, you know, something like that, you had a red triangle. And so there was many different classifications, but it's certainly a fair point that should be acknowledged to some extent, because it's estimated that somewhere around 5,000 to 10,000 homosexuals were victims of the Holocaust as well.
Yeah,
so
I'm guessing it kind of falls under the blanket of can't cover everything.
Yeah.
So they just mentioned a few of the reasons why they were in there. Yeah. And otherwise it would have been an hour and a half long episode.
Yeah, and you know, Coffering 4 was primarily meant to be a prison for people who were sick, who had communicable diseases, kind of put them all together in one place. So there may not have been that classification of prisoner there in large numbers.
Good explanation. All right, moving on. Number 3, Chris Syme says, those deinterlacing artifacts are rough. I don't really have a comment on that because I have no idea what those are.
That's like the wavy lines that show up when there's movement on the screen. It's not like crystal clear.
Copy of a copy of a copy, turned down and compressed into a file that actually fits on my computer.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my response would be, you know, you get what you pay for.
Yeah. We don't make any money on these videos yet, so maybe there won't be any.
Maybe we'll upgrade when we make money off the videos.
Now that we're at 1,000, that might happen.
Maybe.
Moving on, the one and only John Orloff.
Let's tell the audience who that is.
Okay, screenwriter for 3 episodes of Band of Brothers, I believe.
Yeah. He tuned in. Yeah. Like, how cool was that?
Yeah, commented right on our video. Excellent breakdown. FYI, the script had the following as a superimposed title over the Hitler's Dead location. Thalem, Germany, May 1st, 1945. I will never know why it's wrong in the episode. Sigh. That's what happens when you have 700 people working on work on something. Stuff falls through the cracks. Cheers.
John, you are forgiven.
That's a huge compliment.
Yeah.
That he actually.
That's kind of awesome. Guess we're getting people's attention.
Yeah.
All right.
Obviously, I had enough material to actually pull from hundreds and hundreds of comments to pull these specific ones out.
John, thank you for helping to create a wonderful mini-series. The world is indebted to you.
Indeed. All right. Number 5, Trace Vandal. He pops up quite often. I'm from a small town called Ketchikan, Alaska, and I've always heard that one of the veterans of Easy Company ended up living living here at some point. In the documentary We Stand Alone Together, you can even hear one of the vets moving to Ketchikan, but it's not clear who says it. Do you guys know? I've tried to research it myself, but I haven't found much. I believe Jared has an answer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there is truth to this rumor. There was a non-commissioned officer in Easy Company by the name of Roderick Bain, who was originally from Portland, Oregon. And I do not believe he moved to Ketchikan on a permanent basis, but he did go fishing there in the summertime. And you can actually read more about Roderick Bain, even though he's not one of the main characters in the series. But he is featured in Marcus Brotherton's book, We Who Are Alive and Remain, which is a nice little intimate read about Easy Company in the years after the war. So, yes indeed, there was a member of Easy Company who went fishing in Alaska with some great frequency, and I believe he lived in Anchorage for a good portion of his later life.
There you go, Trace.
So there you go.
Enjoy. If I am severely red, these lights are hot as hell. I don't know how you do this. All right, moving on. Am I very red? I feel very red.
In comparison to me, you're very red, but I'm translucent. That's my skin tone, so.
The next thing I'll learn on DaVinci is color grading to correct myself. This guy, Dave, you love typing. Hi, Jared and Andrew. Thanks for more great insight into Easy Company and one of my favorite episodes of the series. My historical film question for you is about the film version of Cornelius Ryan's book, A Bridge Too Far. Question: was this American-produced and scripted film a deliberate whitewash of the U.S. 82nd Airborne Division's failure to secure the Nijmegen bridges on the first day of the operation, and promoting instead the idea that Market Garden was ill-conceived, badly planned, and based on faulty intelligence? Swedish historian Christer Bergstrom's book, Arnhem, 1944, An Epic Battle Revisited, refers. Thank you.
There's a lot in that question.
There's a lot in that question.
All right, well, thank you, Dave. There was some good content. And, you know, I don't know if the depiction of the 82nd Airborne in A Bridge Too Far was some sort of a calculated conspiracy or purposeful whitewash on the part of the filmmakers. I think a truthful way to answer it is that in the 45 years since the film has been made, there's been additional research and interpretations that have been drawn. And you know, that kind of gets to the heart of the matter. You know, when people talk about revisionist history, they often use it as a negative term. But really, it's the purpose of historians to constantly be reanalyzing and revising. Otherwise, there'd be nothing new to write.
Like if you find new evidence and don't change your opinion at all, that's kind of...
Imagine if we did that with medicine. You know, what a horrible place we would be in. But to answer your question in part, you know, I think in addition to this kind of blind optimism that the Allies had in September 1944 in trying to rush things, bring the war to an end by Christmas time, they certainly got a little bit ahead of themselves, and as the title would imply, went a bridge too far. But yet when you look specifically at the 82nd Airborne Division, you know, I just think they had too many objectives. You know, seize the high ground there, go capture 4 bridges here. And I mean, that's almost impossible when you think about it. You know, it sees 4 bridges, and you know, and amidst all of this too, they drastically underestimated the power and strength of the enemy too.
Right, yeah. Old men.
So you know, I don't know if we can show too much disdain for the 82nd Airborne. I think they were given a rather impossible task, and one of the most difficult tasks of any Allied units to fight in Operation Market Garden.
I'd love to elaborate on it, but I'm just kind of overly, like, umbrella familiar with what happened.
Well, we will get into these topics more in depth when we actually do a full episode dedicated to A Bridge Too Far, because we've had a lot of people asking about it and talking about it.
Right. On a side note, this is literally just a hobby that we both have full-time jobs, and this is thrown together after hours and after a lot of hours, and so the frequency of these videos I can't guarantee, but quality over quantity.
Amen.
So. Okay, number 7, Christopher Orozco asks, in Saving Private Ryan, does the movie accurately portray the 2nd Ranger Battalion as they landed on Omaha Beach? Not familiar with the Rangers' involvement on Omaha Beach. This is a packed question.
Yes, and this too we will examine in more in depth when we look at Saving Private Ryan in its entirety. And I think the best way that I can answer that is both yes and no. And I think, you know, of course, those first 30 minutes of Saving Private Ryan are quite powerful and evocative and telling, because, you know, there's a lot that's being packed in those first, you know, 27 or 28 minutes. And I'd say it certainly captures the violence, the intensity, the desperation. But as we look at Charlie Company of the 2nd Ranger Battalion specifically, I think we could say that the film is a little bit to be desired in a number of things. First and foremost, Charlie Company did not land in the Dog Green sector of Omaha Beach, as we see in some of the opening titles of the film. They actually landed in Charlie sector on Omaha Beach, which was kind of the far right flank, the far western edge of Omaha Beach.
A little more towards Point du Hoc.
Yes.
When you think of Rangers, that's kind of where they were grouped.
Yeah, and the company commander, you know, Tom Hanks was about 40. I believe he turned 40 while they were filming those beach scenes. But the real company commander was a 24-year-old officer by the name of Ralph Goranson. And spoiler alert, unlike Captain Miller, Goranson survives the war.
Yes.
As well.
He lived a long, happy life after.
Yes.
Ned Orton asks...
This is in regard to the movie 1917.
Yes. A very janky video that I put out learning editing for the very first time.
Our inaugural video.
Yeah. Ned Orton asks, you make it sound so easy. You'd have had it easy with your cell phone in 1917. And
is that an observation or a criticism?
I don't know, but the only thing I can think to respond to that with is, yes, a lot of people would have had it easier in 1917 with a cell phone.
Especially on the Western Front.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. We got to get to 10 and I got to take a break. I'm like burning. Anyway. Yeah, right?
Wow.
Jackson Sauce says, he doesn't ask anything, he says, this channel needs more viewers and subs. It's quality.
Well, who are we to argue with that?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right, Jackson. Number 10, Christopher Miller. I think here we start a bit of a theme with Christophers. But
okay.
Christopher Miller asks, why were the Germans firing their guns at night, giving away their position? I still don't get it.
Is this in regard to 1917?
No, this is Crossroads.
Ah, well, that is a great question. Dick Winters asked himself the same question.
Mm-hmm. I stumbled across a small bit of commentary on this, and I can't vouch for its validity, but I can't even remember where I found it, but somebody somewhere responded to this with, they were part of a diversionary tactic where another group of Germans was attacking somewhere, and they were firing to distract the group that the other Germans were attacking. And Easy Company just kind of stumbled across on all this, and it was just kind of lucky.
The island was a land of confusion, so it's certainly possible.
Yes. What a perfect time to take an intermission. This just in, we're filming this, and I have to show you something on the TV behind you.
Small farm that he and his family of 8 lived in, this deluxe 1863 luxury home.
It's your local friendly park ranger. Number 11, Flame Killer 20 says, I've heard that Smokey visited his foxhole years later and actually found his coffee cup that he is shown dropping in the scene. If that's true, that is awesome.
Okay, he's speaking of
Bastogne.
Yeah,
during the attack.
Smokey from that episode of Band of Brothers. That story may be apocryphal. He passed away a few years, I believe, before the series came out. And I don't actually know if he actually went over to Bastogne and you know, saw the places where he fought like many of his comrades did. But you know, I will say this, that those woods for many years were filled with the debris of those barrages and firefights that took place. So it's in the realm of possibility that he found something, whether it was his actual tin cup that he dropped in his lap when he was shot, I think is something else altogether different. But when, you know, that moment was kind of seared in Smokey's mind, because you know, he recalled even many years later, he remembers that steaming cup of coffee dropping in his lap as that bullet rips through his body. Kind of like, it was like his last moment of normality, you know, in his life, you know, when he was, you know, still whole, you know, and getting hot coffee dropped in your lap was that memory, so. All
right, so can't verify.
No, can't verify that one.
Number 12, another Christopher Binder, sorry if I got it wrong. Was divorce and girlfriends leaving their boyfriends while fighting overseas common, like what they showed with Buck?
Yes, with Buck Compton and his girlfriend breaking up with him while he's in the service. Yeah, unfortunately this was fairly common. And you know, many of you have probably heard of the phrase, a Dear John letter, and those certainly, a lot of those were sent during the war years. And when you look at the numbers, statistically speaking, divorce as a whole became more common during the World War II years. In 1940, 1 out of every 6 Americans got divorced.
Wow.
In 1946, 1 out of every 4 Americans got divorced. So I think it had something to do with so many families being uprooted, families being broken up by the war. This had a huge factor tying into those sorts of home front issues. And yeah, so not uncommon at all. And now, you know, 1 in 2 Americans get divorced. So the trend continues.
Right? Moving on. Aiden Sanders says, love the vids. Could you possibly elaborate on why the friendly planes fired on their own men in the forest when they were about to give the drop? I've seen this show many times and have never known the reason for it. Again, Bastogne, Band of Brothers.
This refers to the airdrop that took place right around Christmas time,
right,
1944.
You see the men coming out of the woods throwing the smoke out.
Yep, yep. And here too, this was not uncommon. Friendly fire, either with planes or artillery or small arms fire. We will only know of a fraction of the friendly fire incidents that took place in the Second World War, and you know, to what extent were such events covered up by commanding officers, you know, people who didn't want to take the blame for it or didn't want to write a letter back to family members saying, oops.
Yeah.
You know.
The PR behind that is just terrible.
Yes. Yeah. Pat Tillman,
yeah, exactly.
Case in point.
Yeah.
You know, in regard to, and the planes that were strafing the ground in that scene were P-47s, which were a very dependable and loved plane. I actually interviewed a few P-47 pilots a number of years ago. And in fact, that pilot told me that some ground troops had a little bit of animosity for he and his fellow men in the 9th Air Force for their perceived frequency of shooting at their own men on the ground. And as a result of this, the 9th Air Force had the rather undesirable nickname of the American Luftwaffe. So that's
so
not
it wasn't specifically clearing the way where they thought they were Germans, they just shot it.
They probably thought they were Germans.
Okay.
In that particular scene.
There you go.
Yep.
Simple as that. Sometimes the answer is just too darn simple.
Indeed.
All right, 14, Leila Kufel. Sorry again if I'm pronouncing that
Lila,
wrong.
maybe.
Leila Kufel. Regarding the killing of prisoners, was it because they were behind enemy lines and didn't have a lot of men, so it would have been risky to take prisoners? I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah, and this gets to the heart of the issue in the Day of Days episode and the Carentan episode of Band of Brothers. Well, especially where a lot of the scuttlebutt regarding Ronald Spears and his supposed killings are being discussed among the men in Easy Company. And, you know, Spears by and large did do the things that his men accused him of. And perhaps, if people are interested, you know, there just may be a book in the works about Ronald Spears. I think you know the author.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
Tell me more, please.
Yes, I am in the midst of completing a biography on Ronald Spears, where we will get to the heart of a lot of these mysteries and conundrums about that young officer. But we'll talk more about that later on. In the meantime, and to get to Layla or Lila's question here, you're absolutely right. For paratroopers on D-Day, it was very, very difficult. Indeed, it was dangerous to be taking prisoners. Because a lot of these prisoners, including those who were apprehended by Ronald Spears, their noise discipline wasn't that great. They were kind of oblivious to the fact that the invasion was going on. And so it begged the question, if the Germans could not maintain noise discipline for their own well-being, what would make you think that they would do it for their American captors? That was one thing. These guys, if we drag them along, are going to get us killed. Another thing that prisoners do in regard to the Normandy invasion in these early hours of D-Day is that they slow you down.
And they chew up your resources.
And they chew up your resources, they slow you down,
yeah.
They drag their feet, they may compromise your position, they might try to, you know, betray your position, so on and so forth.
You have to be extra vigilant of your weapon because
Yeah.
they're hauling prisoners around.
Yeah, and Spears was at least 6 or 7 miles away from his objective when he lands a little bit to the north of St. Mary Glees after 1 a.m. on D-Day. And so when you have to travel perhaps 6 miles in 5 hours through enemy country at night through flooded terrain, time and speed is of the essence.
Right.
And so in their mind, this is how they rationalized the killing of prisoners. And unfortunately, it's just a harsh reality of what it was at that given moment. I certainly do not condone the killing of prisoners, but when you look at the situation that they found themselves in, you don't have to approve of it, but you can at least understand it to an extent.
Yeah, exactly. You can, without approving it, understand why they did it. So.
Yeah, and on top of that too, You know, one of the purported rumors is that, you know, General Maxwell Taylor, this kind of gung-ho, public relations hungry general that was the commander of the 101st Airborne. There was supposedly this informal order handed down through the ranks to take no prisoners, and over time that order gets a little bit more showy and dramatic, like, you know, oh, just fight with your knives until the sun comes up so you don't give away your position. That's a little bit more dubious a claim, but these thoughts were in the paratroopers' minds as they were boarding those C-47s to take them across the channel. So harsh stuff, but it is what it was.
It's war. Yeah. All right, 15. And I believe this question is in regards to when you mentioned there was some living Easy Company men. Myopic Autistic Metal says, lame. I read online a veterans website that they were all dead, that the last one died in 2019. So much for record keeping. It pleases me to know one remains. And there's an elaboration on that.
Yes, in fact, 2 remain. And as of the moment that we're filming this, there is one enlisted man named Bradford Freeman, whom I'm acquainted with. This wonderful, humble guy from...
Move apart, because I'll put a picture of him in between us here.
From Mississippi, this guy here. He is the last enlisted man of Easy Company who's alive, and he's just a wonderful, kind of salt-of-the-earth person.
And he makes no appearance in the series.
No.
So.
There was an actor who was cast as him, because he met the actor who played him, but he was just kind of like a background extra.
You'd probably see him in the prep for D-Day or something.
Yeah, something like that. There is one officer of Easy Company left, Ed Shames,
who wanted almost nothing to do.
Who wanted nothing to do with the book or the series. He did not have a high opinion of Stephen Ambrose, the man who wrote the book. And Ed Shames, he went to the June 2001 reunion at Utah Beach in Paris. And I believe there's footage of this in the special features of Band of Brothers, if you have the DVD. But I believe that's the only thing that he really associated with in regard to it, and that was more so just to see the guys that he served with.
It was probably the largest gathering.
Yeah,
of them there.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. If you look up 2001 Band of Brothers reunion at Utah Beach, I defy you not to be moved by some of the footage that you watch.
I believe that's where, is that the picture of Winters and Spears? Yeah,
that was the first time since 1945 that Winters and Spears saw each other. And there's this iconic photo of the two of them embracing on Utah Beach. Powerful stuff.
Again, another Chris Frederick.
With a great last name.
Yeah, a frequent commenter. Thanks for watching our videos, Chris. I implore you to watch When Trumpets Fade, if you haven't already. Does anyone add an S to the end of your name? P.S.
Sometimes.
Winters went Super Cyan. I am not familiar with that phrase.
To get to the main question there, yes, I have seen When Trumpets Fade, and it's really an underrated movie. What are your thoughts on When Trumpets Fade?
It suffered from a lack of budget.
Yeah.
It really, it was made, it kind of
It was an HBO movie.
It was an HBO movie? It kind of plays for like a TBS or a TNT.
It's a TV movie.
Yeah, kind of like the Hunley or something like that, you know? But it just seems like, and plus Saving Private Ryan came out the same year.
Yeah, the same year.
And the disparity between the two is, when compared to how that changed war movies from then on, because it stood, if Saving Private Ryan had not come out, it would hold its own on a much higher level, but I think that just kind of overshadowed it.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And there's this trifecta of World War II movies that come out in 1998, because you not only have Saving Private Ryan,
The Thin Red Line,
and When Trumpets Fade, but you also have The Thin Red Line. I like each of the three of those a lot, but for entirely different reasons. They're entirely and aesthetically different.
Yeah, they're all their own films.
Yeah. Yeah, but Chris, my brother and I are in the midst of trying to produce and trying to fundraise a short film about our grandfather's experiences in the Hurtgen Forest. My brother has gone and toured the Hurtgen Forest with some of our mutual friends. And so yeah, I would ask any of you viewing, if you're interested in becoming an executive producer for a worthy project or a film, you can visit brushmountainmedia.com/Hurtgen.
Yep. And I'll include a link down below to that website.
You can learn more about our project there. And when we eventually analyze When Trumpets Fade, we will have my brother as a guest host on that one. And he can talk about his trip and talk about the Hurtgen Forest and what he saw firsthand.
He has researched the Hurtgen Forest until he was blue in the face. And does anyone add an S to the end of your name?
On occasion, yeah.
Number 17 here, we're nearing the home stretch. Tixian Light. Why do you have to fuzz out the scenes you're talking about? It's better to see what you're watching.
That's a question for you.
That's for me. I 100% agree. It is better to see what we're watching. Unfortunately, if I were to show more than I do, I've strategically found out what I need to do. Whoever owns the rights to the film that we're covering, we'll just go ahead and copyright claim it. And if we ever do make money, we're not going to make any off that video. And they also reserve the right to just take it down. Mm-hmm. And if that happens to us 3 times, we'll just lose our channel.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If they can copyright claim us, and that's just we don't make money on that video if we ever do. And there's also a copyright strike, and that's where, hey, we don't like what you did with all our footage.
Yeah. Has that happened to us?
No. Okay. No, I've had 3 claims. You might see 3. The first Band of Brothers video had like 6,000 views, and now it has like 1,000 because I had to change it and put it back up.
How do all these other people get away with these reaction videos?
I don't know.
Yeah. We're learning along with everybody else, folks.
If anybody has any input on that, just go ahead and hit us up on our email, realhistory1944@gmail.com. Moving on, 18, Nikki B. This is one of my favorite movies, and this is one of our lesser viewed videos.
On A League of Their Own. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. It's a fun one.
This is one of my favorite movies. I doubt her character is based on anyone, but Madonna is everything. Love your content and hope to learn more history from you.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't think Madonna's character, whose name is May, I believe, in that movie, I don't think she's based off anyone in particular. However, she is a good embodiment of kind of the spirited attitude that a lot of the ball players in the league had. And
you get out of my way, I can do this.
Yeah, you know, kind of that empowered persona. And you know, the league owner, Philip Wrigley, you know, who owned Wrigley Gum, you know, he was trying to sell sex and kind of this sense of Americana as well. And I think Madonna carries that sort of characteristic quite well throughout the film. As
they show in the film, instantly having photographers on her all the time. All right.
So thanks for watching that one, Nikki.
This is an interesting one from Peter Yingling. They carried crickets, not clickers. You'd think a history professor would know that.
Ooh.
Dig.
Okay, so this is in regard to the Day of Days episode of Band of Brothers. And so the paratroopers had these crickets in order to identify themselves behind enemy lines and whatnot. But truthfully, Peter, they go by either name.
Yeah, they were originally sold by Acme as a toy, and they were called clickers.
And so if you go to the Acme website, the original manufacturer of them in Great Britain, they referred to them not as crickets, but clickers.
Yeah, it's like the Model 40 something, I don't know.
Yes.
But, yeah,
so,
clicker. You can call them either thing.
So, Peter, I don't mind your critique, but before you bring out the snark, do your homework. And yeah, go. How you like that, Cricket?
It's a clicker. Raricia, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. Why in this movie they never show how the infantry division meets with the 101st Airborne Division? And I think this is referring to Day of Days.
Yes, and Band of Brothers as well. They do, in fact. They do show it. It could be more pronounced, most assuredly.
Right, it's kind of subtle at the end.
But you can see a wee little 4th Division patch on a guy.
When they're showing up in the tanks.
Yeah, when Nixon shows up with the tanks and he says to Winters, "You want to lift." Mm-hmm. There is a subtle acknowledgement of that.
Yep. And also in Carentan, when the Armored Division shows up, and when Jimmy Fallon helps out with the ammunition.
Yeah, but there are other outfits mentioned throughout, but. Yeah, we have actually been to the place where, one of the primary places where the two divisions did link up, and that's in Sainte-Marie-du-Mont, a beautiful town, just a few miles in from Utah Beach.
If I can find our picture that we took there in 2019 in front of that famous statue, I'll superimpose it right now.
Next up we have a question from Luke Trottier, or Trottier. We apologize if we're mispronouncing your name. And he was actually the first comment that we actually had on our page, so thank you, Luke, for your early support. And he asked, 11 subscriptions? I have a feeling you will have much, much more than this this time next year if you continue with YouTube. I would certainly hope so.
Right? Yeah.
How delightful.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for hopefully sticking around. I got to go in and check and see if you're still there. Bronson Strange, at Real History, hey, I've got a question, but I will patiently wait for the episode 6 to answer. Already out, obviously. When Doc Rowe asks Toy where his boots are, he says, "In Washington, up General Taylor's ass." Now it's obvious General Taylor was not present during the Battle of the Bulge, but was he necessarily in Washington the entire time? Or did he go back to England or France following any conferences in Washington? All I can find is that he was absent from the battle. Thanks in advance.
Mm-hmm. Great question. Maxwell Taylor was not absent for the entirety of the Battle of the Bulge. As is often indicated, he was in Washington attending various staff meetings and whatnot. It certainly indicates that Allied planners were certainly not anticipating this offensive into the Ardennes. And so he hears about the Battle of the Bulge commencing. And I believe he left Washington on Christmas Eve, on December 24th, 1944. He arrives in Belgium 2 days later, and then he reconnects with the 101st Airborne on December 27th. And of course, by that point, the heaviest of the fighting around the immediate vicinity of Bastogne had already subsided. And I believe it became one of the great regrets of his life that he missed perhaps the most iconic moment of fighting that his division endured.
He missed being in charge of them.
He missed being in charge. Certainly his men noticed his absence, as that line with Joe Toy would indicate in that episode of Band of Brothers. But if you read any of Dick Winters' books, or the books about him, he was not always a fan of Maxwell Taylor. Because Maxwell Taylor, he's late to the show, and he rolls in and he starts barking orders to his men, like, "What are you doing, soldier? Don't you know to do this or that?" And everyone just kind of turned to him with an ugly face, like, "Dude, we know exactly what you're doing, and we've been here the whole time, and you haven't."
We've been handling it just fine with it.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
and
if he were present, we wouldn't have the iconic nuts. So, thank you to McAuliffe.
Yep, thank you. Great question.
And hopefully that answers it to your liking. Corey Doffing, did I read correctly that the 506 did not train with leg bags, or did they simply pack more into them for the Normandy jump than they'd done during their training? Between that and the air sickness pills, those were two pretty big game time mistakes, after what seemed like amazing training and preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are two big factors that men had not anticipated, because, you know, they already had so much equipment. They already had, you know, like 80 plus pounds. And then here's another 20 or 30 pounds strap on your leg.
So it was introduced to them right then and there?
They were British produced. I do not believe they trained with them stateside. And how they were a rather unique design in theory, but they never really worked. Because what was supposed to happen is that, okay, so the bags would be attached to your leg, and then after you jumped out of the plane, and I'm not sure how it released itself, but there was 15 feet of rope. And so the bag would actually dangle from your leg, and that would diminish some of the weight that was on your body, and it wouldn't be such a rough fall when you hit the ground. And it would kind of, you know, anchor you to the ground a little bit too, and you supposedly wouldn't be dragged across quite as much.
Sounds really good in theory.
In theory. But what happened almost universally is that extra weight was just blown away by the prop blast of the plane, and that's why so many paratroopers were missing so much equipment on D-days, because they shoved a lot of excess gear in those leg bags, and those leg bags were never to be seen again. Yeah. There's probably hundreds of them still in the swamps of Normandy.
Nate Chloe, does anybody else read the title of these videos and immediately feel turned off to watch them? Why sit through an amazing movie just to listen to somebody pick it apart as though we didn't realize it's a fictional story? Of course, regarding 1917.
This really gets to the heart of the matter, I think, of why our channel exists in the first place, is because, you know, we as human beings, we read one book for every 10 movies we watch. And I think when most people watch a history film, they just take it as the gospel truth. There's a lot of really great historical films out there that have a lot to offer, but none of them are perfect. All of them have their imperfections or their creative liberties, and it's our objective with this channel not to undermine great cinema or anything like that, but to offer additional context that allow you, the viewers, to separate fact from fiction. So that's what we're all about.
Caden Rauch, it is so satisfying to see historians being extremely happy with those little trophies from their collections. Which you
well, Caden, cheers.
What might that be?
We have here some more trench art. And this is from 1945, and it has a very intricate map of Europe on it. And it has etched on the side, brass used in the manufacture of this tankard was salvaged from the battlefields of World War II.
Nice. Let me see if I can go, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I kind of got it there. You get the gist of it.
So, Caden, here's to you, to all the relics out there, and all the people who collect them.
Belongs in a museum. Just a side note, it is almost impossible for him to do a first-time watching reaction. I'm pretty sure he's seen the Library of Congress worth of.
There's probably a few out there I haven't seen, but
probably some foreign films, maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do as much homework then, and then my commentary wouldn't be as meaningful, which would undermine the purpose of our channel. So
hold on, I'll cut in a. I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but B Huang 92. I've been to the actual location years ago. I remember the house being a lot further down the hill than it was depicted in the show. And this is regarding Foy in
Band of Brothers.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I think, and I may have actually mispronounced or misstated this in my commentary, but I think in the show, the distance between the forest and the village is shorter than what it actually is. In real life, it's somewhere around 200 to 300 yards.
Where in the show, it looks like it's maybe 100.
Maybe a football field, yeah. So, yeah, it's about 2 or 3 American football fields long.
Which is almost 2 or 3 European football fields. Willie Williams, where can I get that shirt? Not these, but the Spears shirt you were wearing in Carentan.
Yeah, so my Ronald Spears shirt that advertises Lieutenant Spears' Last Stop Smoke Shop is from a t-shirt website called Ranger Up, and they have a lot of military and historical themed shirts. This shirt is from the historic Jamestown settlement in Virginia. And I've had this one for a long time as well.
We have had almost 14,000 comments asking when we're going to do the Pacific. And I'd imagine we'll probably get to that somewhere around midsummer.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, these mini-series take a lot of work. And you know,
they come out in quicker succession, but there's a lot. I mean, you're essentially watching a 10-hour movie.
Yeah.
So.
And putting these presentations together on our channel, I by and large go through the same sort of methods that I do when I prepare for a lecture in the classroom, even though the presentation itself may only last 40 minutes. I put a lot of time beforehand into researching, making notes, making sure that I get the facts as right as I can.
Right.
And then this guy here spends 4 times that amount editing the videos.
I sit here while we watch it, and then I take my camera equipment back home and everything, and then because I have a full-time job, I spend I don't know, hour and a half a night, and over the course of 3 or 4 nights, you get your video. And it's a hobby. I love it. I love doing it, and I found that I really wanted to get into trying video editing, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. You can probably see from, just go through our catalog, even through the Band of Brothers series, you can see I've gotten somewhat better at.
You have.
I had a lot of fun with the Grant special that I put out this morning. So that was fun to put together. But before we go here, this just came through. One last comment here I got from David Cardoza. Who was Grant with in real life and in the show? I'm assuming he meant
when he is shot
in the Jeep. Yeah, because he's with 2 lower enlisted.
It is not in the historical record who he was with. He could have been driving the truck by himself for all I know. But in the court-martial documents, it does not specify who was in the truck with Sergeant Grant when he was shot in May 1945.
I think that provides a lot of evidence to the fact that he was probably alone, because they would have definitely provided witness statements in there.
Those documents may be out there, but they were not in the final report. I'm sure there's a transcript somewhere in the Library of Congress or National Archives.
Who's going to go spend 3 days looking for that?
Yeah, I used the materials that were at my disposal.
Right. So again, can't provide a definitive answer. Sorry. But with that said, I'm going to go throw this together because we're currently like 940 subscribers, and well, I got to keep my promise.
We'll see you next time on Real History.
Thanks for watching.